Hi, it's Molly and welcome back to my channel. Welcome here if it's your first time. Today's video is all about eyeshadow. I'm going to give you everything I learned as a makeup artist, and I have a technique that works to keep your eyeshadow from creasing all day long, and it really works. You can find me on Instagram at Girl Get Glamorous and on Pinterest at Molly Gardner1. In between videos, there's always more on the blog at Girl Get Glamorous. All right, let's get started. I personally prefer to start out with eyes. That way, if there's any eyeshadow that falls down, I can clean it up pretty quickly. One of my biggest tips is to start with a great eye moisturizer. You need that moisture for concealer, but you do also need it for eyeshadow. I start by tapping it right here, kind of on the outside. You can see when I smile, this is where my crinkles are. And I'll aim for about a pea-size amount on each side. Tap that in. Again, starting at that outer edge. As you can see, I don't really have much left on my ring fingers. Now I'll tap it in, starting at my lash line, bringing it over and up all the way to my eyebrow. So I'm not adding a ton of product to my upper lid, but I am adding just enough so that my lids stay hydrated. Next, I'm using the NARS Tinted Smudge Proof Eyeshadow Base. It does have a little bit of color in it, so I don't use a concealer or foundation on my lids. I do about 2 swipes, and then I'll start to tap this in. And now, again, with whatever is left on my ring finger, this time I'll go underneath my eye, tapping that in at the lash line. The purpose of an eye primer is to give your eyeshadow something to grip onto so that the pigment really pops from the first swipe. I want to show you on my arm the difference between using primer and not using primer. And now let's take a deeper shade so that you can really see the difference. I'll start applying the shadow right here where I have no primer. And you can see right here where I have primer how incredible that grip is. The pigment is so much more rich just from that first swipe. We'll grab a little bit more now. So you can see how the section that has primer, this eyeshadow is so much more smooth, even, and pigmented versus the sections that don't have primer. The other thing primer does is add longevity. So you can see here, if I start to blend away the shadow, the area where there's no primer just blends away easily. In my opinion, primer is really essential for both pigment and longevity. And then I'll go over my lid with a little bit of translucent powder. This really helps so that the eyeshadow glides over the eyes and doesn't get splotchy across my lids. If you use an under eye corrector, I like to apply this before eyeshadow so that I can really get in at my dark circles and get those corrected before I start eyeshadow. I'll start out with a fluffy brush. Today I'll use the Morphe by Ariel, and I'm dipping into MAC Wedge. This is my favorite part of doing eyeshadow, is creating the initial shape. If you're wondering which direction to send your eyeshadow, I like to use my lower lash line to really guide the placement. I'll send everything up and out according to my lower lash line, and then I like to stop everything before the edge of my eyebrow. Because everything that you blend extends, I don't necessarily put it out that far to begin with. I'll place it in a little bit and start to blend it out. For the crease, I do prefer to tap a little bit at the edge and then use that windshield wiper motion to get it blended into my crease. Once I feel like it's pretty sufficiently blended, I'll start to do little swirls to really blend out that edge so that there's no harsh lines. And then I'll grab a pencil brush. Today I'm going to use the Sigma E30. A pencil brush does look exactly like a pencil. And again, using my lower lash line, I'll make a little mark with the shadow to meet that crease shade. And now we have a soft V at the outer edge of my eye. And this is what creates the eyeshadow shape. Figuring this out completely changed the game for me, and it's made doing my eyeshadow so much easier. I'm bringing that taupe shade right into my lashes, just again, so that I get a little bit of shadow in between them and a really nice blend. And now grabbing a little bit more of this taupe shade, again for me, MAC Wedge, I'm pulling that forward now over my lid so that this V shape blends in with the rest of my eyeshadow. Let me tell you, this has just been the biggest game changer for me, so I really hope that it helps you as well. Now, I do prefer to have eyeshadow on my lower lash line, so I'm going to wedge in a little bit as close as I can to my lashes. Now I'm grabbing a fluffy brush and just blending out that eyeshadow so that there are no harsh lines. This one is from e.l.f. Cosmetics. I want to say it was like $4. So it's always good to have a few extra brushes on hand to blend out. Figuring out this shape and getting it down makes doing the rest of my eyeshadow so much faster because to me, it's almost like a roadmap. Now that this outer edge is figured out, the rest of the shadow just seems to go on so quickly for me. You might be wondering why I would use both a fluffy crease brush and a precision crease brush, so I wanted to go over the differences. The fluffy crease brush I use for my transition shade. As you can see, the bristles are more loosely packed. They're a little bit longer and they're fluffier at the top. Because these bristles are more loosely packed, I'll get a more sheer application of eyeshadow, so it's perfect for transition shades or blending eyeshadows. As you can see with the precision crease brush, the bristles are more densely packed, they're a little bit shorter, so I'm going to get more pigment and more color just using a different size brush. Now I'll tap that into MAC Saddle, and the reason that I go back over my crease with the precision crease brush and with a darker shade, darker colors recede and lighter colors pull forward, so I'm trying to recede my crease even more to make my lid space look larger. So as you can see, now we have a really nice basic shape. The eye has definition. Another thing that I want to mention, on a brush, these are considered the bristles. This is the ferrule that attaches the bristles to the handle, and then this is the handle. If you start to get a little bit too crunched up on the brush and you're holding it by the ferrule, you're holding it right by the bristles, you're going to get too much color and it can make things a little bit splotchy. It's going to be too concentrated and not in a consistent way. So in order to get a more diffused application, it's better to hold brushes by the end of the handle. It makes for a much smoother application. This is really your chance where you get to be creative. You can use any color you want on your lid. If you want to have a really nice everyday look, you can grab a matte shade that's the same as your skin tone and you can apply that all over the lid. I tend to prefer my eyes with a little bronze on it. I feel like it catches the light really nicely. For the lid, you want one of these packing brushes, and they're fairly thin and they have a domed head, and what these do is really pack on color, and then the domed portion fits perfectly with your eye. This is a synthetic brush, so I'm going to use that because I'm using a cream instead of a powder today for my lid. If you are using powder and you want a ton of grip, another favorite of mine is this Surratt brush. It's definitely more of an investment brush, but it is one of those brushes that will last you a lifetime. This is natural hair, so it works better with powders, and this one is a synthetic, so it can be used with powders or creams. Whenever I'm using creams, I like to wipe a little bit back in the lid so that I get a nice even application. And with any eyeshadow, whether you're using a cream or a powder across your lid, I like to start at the base, right at my lash line, and I do this tapping motion, and I'm just pressing the color into my skin. I'm not moving it back and forth. I'm just pressing and lifting. And this packs on the color and also gives you a really nice amount of control. I like to stop right at about the outside portion of my iris. That's the deeper ring around your eye. And I just prefer to stop my lid color right there. And then I bring it all the way up to the crease. This brush actually turned out to be a little bit bigger than I expected, so I'm grabbing this BK Beauty number 203 brush. As you can see, it's just a little bit smaller than the Morphe by Ariel brush. This eye lid space is slightly smaller than this eye's lid space, so I will bring this up just ever so slightly above my actual crease, just so that I can even out the lid space on each side. And now I'll take my pencil brush again that we used to create the shape and start to bring the outside shadow. I haven't put anything else on this brush, and I'm just starting to bring this forward so that it meshes with this cream shadow and we get a nice blend there. I might even bring this shade out just a little teeny bit more. The nice thing about eyeshadow is that you can keep checking in. Always easier to add more. This is the BK Beauty number 205. This is an angled brush and I really like this one. It's made it really easy for me to blend this shape really perfectly. And now I'll grab my eyeliner. Today I'm using the Julep When Pencil Met Gel in Clay. And with any eyeliner, you want it really, really sharp. I have a whole separate video on lining your eyes. I won't go into super detail today. I will just say that it's important, especially for an everyday look, to try to get the liner as close as you can to your lash line, because what you're trying to do is just make your lashes look fuller and give your eye a little lift. So I'm tilting this up ever so slightly so that it meets the edge of that eyeshadow and we get a nice lift, which is really important if you have hooded eyes like I do, where the skin comes down over the edge. And I'm grabbing a smudge brush. I'm just grabbing a little bit of this deep taupe shade and I'm smudging out the liner and setting it. This helps your eyeliner so that it doesn't move, but it also makes your lashes look fuller. And it's really interesting, at least to me, that subconsciously we associate fuller and thicker lashes and hair with health. That's why it's such an appealing thing. Sometimes I feel like I'll just go into beauty and not even know why I'm doing something. And I find the psychology of this really interesting. Now you can grab that same pencil brush that we used earlier. And if you have one of these makeup cleaning wipes around, it's nice to just use that to clean your brushes off. These are pretty affordable. And now I'm going to grab a little bit of that same taupe and I'm placing it in the corner. If your eyes are not hooded or downturned, you can just tap a little bit right here. But if your eyes are hooded or downturned, you can see how this still has a slight droop to it. So what I'm doing, I'm not tilting back yet. I'm going to look straight ahead into the mirror. It feels so strange the first time you do it. And I'm just tapping over where my skin overlaps. And I'm pulling that forward. I always like to pull the color forward instead of pulling it out. That way I can control it a little bit more and it doesn't feel like it gets super blown out. And now I'm taking my angled brush one more time and giving that a blend. More so at the top where that color meets the lighter taupe shade. And now for the bottom, most days I'll throw on a little bit of this inner rim shade. I just love these brightening pencils because to me, it's almost like a concealer for the inside portion of your eye. And I extend that to the outside portion of my iris. That's about where I'll stop. I prefer eyeshadow along my bottom lash line. It's going to be a completely personal preference based on your style, your eye shape. Starting right here, which is just ever so slightly before the iris, I'm going to extend the eyeliner right to the edge of my iris. And I'm going in between my lashes. I'm not going to go in my waterline. The waterline is where I put the brightener. I'm going back and forth and just wedging that color right in. I'm grabbing my smudge brush one more time and grabbing just a touch of that deeper taupe shade. And I'm just wedging this in. This sets the liner. And now you'll need another pencil brush. Personally, I like to keep a second one on hand, but if that's not an option that's going to work for you, you can always clean off this brush that we use. I am just going to grab a clean brush. This one is from ColourPop. And now I'm going back in and grabbing 1-2 little taps of wedge. And I'm going to, again, just smoke out this slightly deeper liner. And that will help transition it to the rest of my skin. And now I'll clean this brush off again and I will grab my cream shadow that we used on the upper lid and I'm just grabbing a little teeny bit of this. And again, this is a synthetic bristle brush, so it works well with creams. And now I'm going to apply just this tiniest smidge right here. This just brings a little light to that inner corner. You can see it's the tiniest thing, but to me, it really makes a nice impact. This step is going to seem a little bit crazy. What I like to do is use glitter on the center of my lid. And I know, especially if you're over 40 like me, you hear glitter and you think like, no. We're not doing this. We're not TikToking today, but trust me on this one. This shade is called Amaze. It's from ColourPop. As you can see, it's well loved. Take my ring finger and I'm taking the tiniest amount. I'm barely grabbing any product. Right here at the center of my eye, directly over my pupil, I'll press in a little tiny bit of shimmer and glitter. I'm being really careful to not press it into the liner at all because I don't want it down that far. I just want it right here in the center of my lid. To me, it does not really even look like glitter, which is why I said don't be scared. This is just a nice way to enhance that look, add that little extra pop of sparkle. And again, if you have your makeup towel nearby, you can just wipe your finger off. These are very handy. It's always so interesting to me when you pull back and you really see this eye has such a nice lift to it. Everything is visually going up and out, which is always what you want with eyeshadow, with any makeup, up and out. And then this side you can see when you're looking at me straight on, my eye goes down. I find this just so fascinating, the power of makeup. When you use these brushes, because we've already used them on this side, you already have a little bit of product in here. So if you tapped 4 times on the first side, you might only need to tap 2 or 3 on this side because there is still product in all of those brushes. Let's recap because I feel like we went over so much information. So right now I'm using a fluffy brush in my crease, and that's creating the transition shade. I'm grabbing a little bit more of that transition shade in a pencil brush, and I'm creating a gentle V shape at the outer edge of my eye. And this is the roadmap for the rest of my eyeshadow. It really helps create the shape. Now I'm taking an angled brush to help really shape that. I'm grabbing a precision crease brush now and going in to deepen my crease a little bit, and this will make the lid look bigger. Now I'm taking a lid brush and tapping in my lid color, starting at my lash line so that the color goes all the way from my lash line up to the crease of my eye. I'm using a tapping motion here so that I get the maximum amount of pigment without blending any of it away. I'm grabbing my pencil brush one more time and blending my outer edge in with the lid. And now I'm grabbing liner so that I can really further lift that outside edge. I'm grabbing some taupe eyeshadow, some deeper taupe eyeshadow, and really blending that all in. I'm tapping it over my crease. This part, again, a little bit scary. And now I'll take that deeper shade and work it into my deep crease. Grabbing the angled brush one more time, I'm gonna blend that out. I'm adding a little bit of brightening color to my waterline. And now I'll take my taupe eyeliner and add that at the bottom center of my eyes only, just sort of iris to iris. And then I'm setting that with a deep taupe eyeshadow shade. And then I'll go over that with my pencil brush and a little bit of the lighter taupe shade so that I get a nice blend. I'm grabbing a little bit more of the shimmer shade that I used across my lid, and I'm working that into my inner corner and my lower lash line. And now I'm grabbing a teeny bit of sparkle and just pressing that ever so gently into the center of my lid, being careful to avoid any of my eyeliner. And that just adds a little pop of shimmer to catch the light. I'm gonna go do the rest of my makeup now and then come back and share with you one more tip that keeps my eyeshadow crease free. The rest of my makeup is done. What I like to do now is grab my setting spray, and with your eyes closed, this part is really important. You want your eyes closed until you feel that setting spray dry down. This is the step that really prevents any creasing. I used to do this for all of my brides, all of my e-com models, which are really, really long days. For models, they're doing like 100 different changes, and I would get no creasing. When it comes to underneath the eyebrows, if you put a lighter shade here, it gives your eye a really nice lift. Some people prefer to do this with powder. I really love these cream sticks, and I go underneath my whole eyebrow with it. And you'll use a flat brush. And it just gives a nice extra lift to the eyes. You can see how this side has a little boost. One of the interesting things I think about makeup is that all of these little teeny things add up to a really nice polished, finished look. So just that teeny step really adds so much impact, which if you are dealing with downturned eyes or partially hooded eyes and you want that lift, this little step really helps. So here's the finished look. Let me zoom in even closer and then we'll zoom all the way out. I really love how emphasizing just the center on the lower gives me definition without dragging my eyes down. It still lets this portion do a lot of the lifting. Once you zoom out, it really is interesting how this is still a very daytime friendly look. And if you want to make things even softer, you could skip doing eyeshadow on the bottom. You could use a lighter skin tone shade across the eye that's a little bit more matte. So that's the fun thing to me about eyeshadow. You can really tweak it, but the basic placement will stay the same. After learning the different placement tips, it's just made doing my eyeshadow so much easier. So I hope it works for you too. If you could take a second to give this video a thumbs up, text the link to a friend, I would really appreciate that. That is all for today, but I will see you in the next video.